Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Set the Pipe. I am Sully. There's CK, and there's Bear, and Dave DeTinley, DDT. We are pretty fortunate today, boys, to have a legend in the sport of men's volleyball. Today we have the legendary Marv Dunphy, head coach, Pepperdine USA Volleyball.
Oh, beautiful.
Hi, Coach.
Look how that goes.
Hey, Marv.
How are you, Coach?
Good.
Oh boy, the lineup here.
I know, right?
But yeah,
we do it. We
characters.
like to do it. We like to do it right, you know, as we can. I mean, before they all say it, I'd like to say it's such an honor to have you on. Thank you so much for doing this with us and for us and talking volleyball. So just excited to have you here. So thanks so much.
Yeah, you know, life's a two-way street, and yeah, I'm fired up too.
Awesome.
We got three Long Beach State guys. Dave, I know you kind of grew up with the guy, and then I was roommates with him in college, and then Bear and I played together on that 91 team, and I was there for 4 or 5 years at Long Beach. And of course, Coley, the 3-time first team All-American that we have to emphasize as part of those two. So we really appreciate
Marv won't hear it.
Marv.
He's coached many of those, so he's fine.
Just a couple of them.
I'm the old guy in the room. Can I go first here?
Yeah.
So Coley.
Yeah, let us.
Whatever you want to do.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go, Marv.
Yeah, Coley. You have a huge heart. You always have. And were you just born that way, or did you get it from your dad? Is there somebody along the way? And I've often thought about that. You know, how much do people change behavior? And my guess is you didn't have to change much. But and I mean that sincerely. I think everybody knows you have a huge heart. And where'd that come from?
Probably my parents. You know, I mean, you were so kind, to my father and to us, to me when I played for you. And I think I just was raised right, you know. And I had two loving parents that loved me and just gave me that opportunity to give that love to others. And I've tried to do that my whole life through back in those days. Kind of a competitor, but always tried to be like that. And I've tried to raise my boys like that and been with my wife and my marriage in that too. So I really appreciate you saying that. And, if we're talking about it, there's two things that I'd like to say about you that I still talk about to this day. One was, when you recruited me, I was kind of low on the radar, and Dwayne and Tom chose to go to Pepperdine, which worked out well for you. And they're still good friends of mine. You called me. You actually picked up the phone and called me and told me that and said you'd still love to have me. You didn't have any money, but you wanted to let me know that so I can look other places or whatever it was. And it was such a class move, and it was such a professional and amazing move. I never forgot that. And then the other one was, when my mother died, you sent me a letter, a card, and you were just such a class act. You were a college coach coaching against me. I'm a young kid at Northridge just trying to play volleyball and, grow up. And, you were there in ways that you wouldn't even imagine. And I've heard so many stories from Dane and Dwayne and Lee and so many others just about that. And it rang true. So, I'm so happy you're on the podcast, and it's just such a great honor to have you on here and talk volleyball with you. You've been doing this for such a long time, and you're on the Mount Rushmore of volleyball, and we're honored to have you here.
Well, thanks. I appreciate it. Hey, before we leave you, Coley, your arm. Well, first of all, you answered most of my question, but can you teach heart? That's for the whole group. How much people change?
I think you can. And I look at it with my children, like they were born in a different way than I was raised. I was fortunate enough to give them a few things just differently than I had. And I think at least in the realm of sports and a few other things, I think you can learn it if you want to. Reading a book about Kobe, for an example, he's one of my, he's my oldest son's idol. And I look at him and the way he went about his business, not everyone starts like that. He did, but some don't. And if you read stuff like that and watch things like that, things you've talked about, things you've done, I think you can evolve into that. There are some things that are maybe innate in human beings or innate in each other, and I might have a little bit in certain stuffs in the competitiveness, but I do think you can teach that. And I do think you have to have a willing participant who truly grasps what you're talking about and understand what you're showing them in, we talk volleyball like Karch, right? Like, not everyone was built like Karch, trained like Karch, but I do feel a lot of people tried to emulate Karch. And so when you do that, you might not have had everything that Karch had growing up, but you try to emulate that. And part of that is heart. Part of that is breaking your finger like my older son did in the last 4 games of his last college career, didn't say a word to anybody and just kept going through it. Or you can complain and not be that. But if you see that kind of stuff and you put yourself in that situation growing up or growing as an adult or athlete or whatever it is into that, I believe those can be taught. And I've tried to do that with at least my boys and a few others. And me and my wife continue to try to grow in developing certain ways in the best we can do with that. But that's a great question. And you always taught, a lot of the stuff that that I've heard and been a part of your camps working with you is the mental part and the emotional and spiritual part of competing and being the best version of yourself. And I think those can evolve as people if you want it to.
I got to ask Marv, did you try to recruit for that? Or is it it doesn't show up until they get on campus and you see what they're about?
Oh boy, no, yeah. So I think when I first started coaching, Dave, I would say something like, hey, this is a big decision. It's 4 years of your life. And what I found out early on is that you're going to have an impact on me as an athlete and vice versa. And it's going to be lifelong. And one of the very best things about coaching is you get to choose the people you go through life with. And I think, it's kind of like the old, in the workplace, hire slow, fire fast. And I would say in recruiting, hire real slow. And because, if I made a mistake, it's a little bit different now. And I'm not saying I'm any better or different, but if I made a mistake, I ate it. Now it's just they force kids out and kids jump ship, and it's a little bit different.
Absolutely, it's definitely different.
Yeah,
to say the least.
Character. Yeah, you don't go too far without good people, and that's the key to life. Is that people say, "Hey, you've been in the right place at the right time." For me, mostly with the right people, in life, Pepperdine, and certainly with the USA team, I was able to be around some of the best to ever play it. So
yeah, hey coach. So with that said, traditionally what we do on here is you need to sit back and relax and kind of let us talk highly of you here. I'm going to give you people out there the resume because, as you know, we're getting older, and younger generation may have forgotten who our legends are in the game. So, like I said, just kind of sit back and. Coach was 34 seasons at Pepperdine, retiring in 2017. He had a win record of 612 wins, 277 losses. That's a 688 percentage clip. 4 NCAA Division I championships, and that is in 1978, 85, 92.
Yep. 92, beating you guys.
That's Long Beach guys.
That might come
on the way to it. On the way to it.
That's right. 2005, 5-time national runner-up, 4 times against UCLA and 1 against Hawaii. I'd like to talk to you about that 2002 Hawaii, which had to vacate that championship. Coached 45 All-Americans. 30 of them were first-team honors. 6 of his players received National Player of the Year awards, and 11 of his Pepperdine Waves competed in the Olympics. He was named Coach of the Year in 2005. And then we go to his national team success from 1985 to 88. He was the head coach of the #1 world ranking USA men's volleyball team with a record of 197 wins, 31 losses. They were able to get the 85 World Cup championships, 86 World Championships, 87 Pan American Games, and the 1988 Olympic gold medal in Seoul. Pretty impressive coach. He's in 4 Hall of Fames, International Volleyball Hall of Fame, AVCA Hall of Fame, Pepperdine Athletics Hall of Fame, Southern California Indoor Volleyball Hall of Fame. Received the 1988 Coach of the Year award from the FIVB, and I said that in 1988. And his education, Pepperdine, master's degree from USC, and a doctorate from BYU. And our research says that you were a popular instructor at Pepperdine's sports medicine department, and you have continued to be there. And that is, in a nutshell, ladies and gentlemen, Marv Dunphy. we're happy.
I mean, that's
to
it?
have him on.
Unbelievable.
Look,
That's
I had
all
to
you
cut
have
it
for him?
down. It got too long at a certain point.
Yeah. We could have went on forever, but yeah.
Absolutely. So I have to say this, Marv, because I say this to everyone. As all four of us are sitting here listening to this, we were involved in your life one way or another. You coached against us. We've been around this. Obviously, DDT with Dejan. And how does it feel to listen to all that? Like to hear what you have accomplished? And you said it was with a lot of great people, and absolutely, there's so many people that you could probably thank and have helped you along the way. But all you've accomplished is when you listen to all that, does it, I mean, obviously, hopefully it makes you smile, but how do you feel about that?
You know what? To be honest with you, and I'm not being false humble here, I remember the people that, as you're saying all these nice things, I go to Fred Sturm, to Jim Coleman, to Gary Sato, to all the great people that where we did it with, and you said some nice things. Thanks, Sully, for reading all that stuff. But when you win it all, everybody sees this a silly emotion, of people jumping up and down and champagne and whatever, and that's all fun and games. But what you really remember who you did it with, and how you did it, and those great experiences, and it's something you may never experience again.
Yeah.
Teams are pretty darn special, and it's nice to win it in NCAA or internationally, and to have that warm, lasting feeling that at this point in time we're the best of what we do. And but what you really remember is the people you did it with and how you did it, and all the funny little stories and the ebbs and flows along the way. And it's very seldom do Olympic Games, World Championships, NCAAs, and life go according to plan, as you all know. So
Yeah.
you bet.
Right. Yeah. We talk about the podcast all the time, Coach, about the journey, right? When we're old farts now and we really look back, it is a journey. It is the people that you're surrounded by. I mean, we've got a couple Long Beach State guys, and we got a Northridge guy on here, and we love what we're doing. And Coley talks about all of his friends from all across the colleges that he's ever played against, and then he played with, and the same goes for us. But yeah, it's a journey for sure. If I can touch on real quick, 84, when they won the first gold medal, you took over an outstanding team, Karch, Timmons, right, Red. How was that transformation going from the previous coaching staff? Did you have a bunch of them still left to your coaching staff? Was it hard? Was it really easy to go from 84 to 88? How was that experience?
Yeah, so a brand new coaching staff, and so some of those guys stayed around to 86. And people ask me once in a while, obviously Doug Beal coached the team that won in 84, and I was part of the team that won in 88. And they said, hey, what was the better team, or what was the best team? And it was actually 1986, because we had, only, 3 or 4 guys went from 84 to 88. 3 pretty darn good guys.
Yeah.
Karch.
They're okay.
But, there was a pretty significant turnover in Powers and Berzins and Dvorak. Were on that 86 team with, Storks, Dverlik, and Partee, whatever, from 88. But, that was, I felt, the expectations were pretty high. And I felt when we won it, it was a little bit of a relief. There was joy, but you know what? We didn't mess it up.
We did it.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Hey, with the Olympics coming up, Coach, do you have any part of that? Are they going to ask you to do anything since it's in LA and it's in our home state? Are you participating at all with that?
You know what? Thanks, Bear. So Karch and I, we had a great relationship when he played, and that continued. And I've been at the last 4 Olympics with him, and we've had a conversation about going forward. But Malibu, I don't want to spend my summer in Anaheim. Nothing against Anaheim. It's just,
It's Orange County.
I like being on our hill. But it's, what I mean by that is that drive down is not so bad. I usually leave at 5 to go, and I went on Monday, and but it's the drive back that it can get kind of cumbersome.
405,
especially And but Karch and I have
ran me out of California.
Yeah, and I'd do anything to help him, and obviously his staff that's there would do the heavy lifting. And if in some way, shape, or form, if I could help him, like a lot of people have helped me along the way, I'm in.
Great.
I don't know, Ubers, limousines to get Coach Dunphy there. I don't know.
Helicopters. We got to get a helicopter.
Whatever you do.
A big part of it would be a water taxi because the PCH is kind of messed up now.
You're right. I have a question talking about, obviously the teams from 85 to 88 that you coached and all those great teams back at Pepperdine from the 80s to the 90s. The game today, you're still involved in it. Like you've helped Karch and others. What's your take and the biggest difference you see in the game today than, let's say, in the late 80s, early 90s?
Oh, boy. I think the first thing, even before that, when I started at Pep, volleyball was kind of a cult sport. So people once in a while say, oh, yeah, the good old days when the players were players and the athletes were athletes. And the good old days weren't always the good old days. And it was kind of a cult sport, and we didn't have very many special players. And so I think the athletes, volleyball athletes today, male and female, are much better than they were then. And there was a unique hammer back in the day, Ernie Sawara and stuff like that. But I guess one of the things that comes to mind is when I watched the matches from the 80s, is that serving was so easy. And,
we talked about that.
Two-person receives and floaters.
We had to, everything with Berzins and Staverlik and Cry was the perfect pass. I mean, everything. And one drill we had before the team could leave practice, Cry and Staverlik, at first maybe Berzins, then Staverlik and Cry, they had to pass 20 in a row, good or perfect. And if you ask Karch about that, one of the things I remember is Pat Powers was serving. He wanted to leave, right? So he was serving easy.
Lollipop.
He wanted to leave.
And I got so ticked off. I said, back to zero. And I thought Karch was going to kill Powers and me. And
oh, that's awesome.
It's awesome.
We watch it, and the speed of the game to me is just remarkable. Like the speed to the setting to the pins, and obviously everyone's bigger, like you said, and just better athletes, or trained better athletes, I should say. I think a lot of the guys in our generation would be maybe just as explosive if they were eating the same way they are today and understanding the workouts and doing those kind of things. But the speed to me is what watching both the men and the women's game is remarkable. Like how fast it's, how low the pipe or set the pipe, which is what we are, but they don't call that anymore. Like the BIC and how fast and slow, and that's where I see the biggest difference. But I was just curious from your standpoint, being around the game for such a long time. It's at the highest level possible. You've been at the elite level in college and internationally. So very, very insightful. Thank you.
Yeah, lots of a lot more creativity, I think now. And going direct, on a first ball and either setting or hitting, and and you better have some schemes because they're coming out of the back row. And in the old days, you'd say something to a right side blocker, hey, be good on your hitter and react to this, but be good on your hitter. Well, now your hitter is the outside and the BIC. They're flying. And, I guess, Coley, while I have you here, your arm.
Oh, yes.
Can you teach? Actually, Dave, you have a good arm too. It's on the left side. But
thank you.
I don't remember if you have a great arm or not.
I could jump. That's about all I could do.
He could jump. Yeah, that's funny.
It's recorded.
I don't know if you
can you teach that.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think like the speed of my arm, for whatever reason it was, I don't think you can teach that. I think you can evolve to be a better hitter and you can work through some of the mechanics, but it's like watching people throw a football, which I got to do that too, or baseball pitchers. There's some people that just have it naturally, that just do it. I was lucky with that with my arm. That's one of the best, things that I had. I was very, very fast, so I was able to hit. I didn't jump. I wasn't the most explosive person, but to go back to your question, I don't think that you can teach. I think you can get evolved to a certain degree, but
Yeah,
I think that was
natural.
just, I got lucky and it was natural.
Yeah, from our Long Beach camp, Hilliard had a tremendously fast arm swing, and then Mark Cairns had a really heavy ball. I mean, when you tried to dig him, you're stung for a couple days. But Hilliard, if you got there in time, you can dig him. But it was so fast as well. Yeah, it's just different. I mean, Coley, along with his quick arm, and I think you would agree to this, Coach, his vision was really good, Knew where everybody wasn't, just really quick in the highest. You know, he's competing at such a high level every single time and bringing that passion with him. Then the arm swing, then the vision. I mean, it was a nice package to bring. So,
thanks, Sully.
Yeah, and that I people ask me, "Hey, Marv, are you a positive coach or a negative coach?" And I try to be a factual coach. And yeah, Philly, I remember you being a great teammate. And am I right? For you,
You're right.
Yeah, for
You're
sure.
right.
Absolutely.
It's something I value in a lot. I mean, it's my team. So thank you again. It very, very true statement.
yeah. Hey, Dave,
Marv, can I?
with
Yeah.
arms before we leave arms here. I think arm. I remember in the backyard you hit a pretty heavy ball, but it didn't help you much in ping pong.
Oh God.
What's that all about?
Yeah.
Look, ping pong and
Oh,
funiente.
Coach.
Ping pong and funiente are our volleyball games, and then obviously the backyard volleyball. But you brought
I don't
this
lose
up on
much-
our pre-call like last week,
Yeah.
That's
and
awesome.
I'm laughing.
I don't lose much in Finiente. I don't know if I've ever played you more, but I've played many a waves, and I love playing Finiente. And by the way, I'm actually, which of course I chose to be with you today, but I'm supposed to say hello to you from Dane and Matt Dalton. They're actually golfing. I was going to golf with those guys today, but work called, and then talking to you is a much better option. But those boys told me to tell you hello.
All right, Dave, you were about ready to answer a question, but before I forget,
Yeah, go.
Oh, great question. Let's get back to ping pong. My fault for interrupting.
You're talking about looking at recruits and character and all that stuff, obviously, and what I used to do is I wanted to on an official or unofficial, I wanted to play with and against the recruit, and because I would see sometimes like ping pong, it would be I missed that, and I don't want that guy, and and I remember played with him and against him in horseshoes, ping pong, everything. But I remember we had I don't know, maybe a half a scholarship, and I brought Brian Millar on a visit, and I played with him and against him. And I was ready to go take somebody else's money and give it to Ryan because it was still competitive. And I think once you see that special trait, it's like, oh boy. And all right, so your question, Dave, what was it?
Okay. I don't think I know this because for everybody on the call, like I really met Dijon 1986, kind of our junior year in high school, and I had transitioned from tennis into just loving volleyball, and then ended up spending basically the next 365 days at the Dunphy house in the backyard playing volleyball in this dusty, rutted out, trees covering it, volleyball net, and it was awesome. But I don't think I know the story on how you got to Pepperdine. And by the way, 1977, you win a natty the next year in 78. Did it seem like it was easy because you won it so early in your career there? But how'd you get to Pepperdine?
Well, so that 78 was my fifth year at Pep. I was an assistant for Harlan Cohen and Bert DeGroot and two great
DeGroot.
people. But how did I got to Pep as I was maybe looking at Santa Barbara, and then the coaches, the Pepperdine coaches said, "Hey, we're starting a program, and the university's moving out to Malibu in '72." And I was pretty lucky to be with those two guys, and that's how I got here. And then when I was done playing, I was finishing up a degree, and one of the coaches was going to move to San Clemente and asked me if I wanted to help out. And actually, I think, Dave, I think I was a better a better assistant coach than a head coach, and I enjoyed that.
Well, what makes a great head coach compared to a great assistant coach? Like I'll use a person that we all know and you talk to is Eric Sullivan. He's now the head coach for the women's national team, but he has been an assistant for a long time at Texas and has chose to stay an assistant. What makes a great assistant and what makes a great coach? And sometimes bad assistant to a great coach and vice versa.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit of, as assistant, you're setting the table, and there's this balancing act with what goes up the food chain, because sometimes you talk to an athlete and they say, hey, what we say here stays here, and you have to be true to that. And I think part of the job for assistant, especially the NCAA, is you better be promoting the head coach, because it's not really the location. Hey, Malibu's great. But it's really the volleyball tradition that would get kids here, and part of that is the coaching staff.
Yep.
Yeah, head coaches. That would be interesting to hear what your take is on every one of you on what makes a great head coach, because I don't think one size fits all. Al Skate's the very best that I was ever aware of. He had his style. Bob Yoder at SC had his style.
John Price had his, for sure.
So did Ray Rattel.
Yeah, Ray and Alan Knipe, and I would think that every one of those is a little bit different. Some might be a little more, and today I see some of these coaches that are more like general managers, and then all this staff has, hey, you train the team, you recruit, you do this and that, and it was probably a little more well-rounded than the head coaches in my era. You had to recruit and do all the admin, but you better be a good coach. And because most important thing is when you're a coach, at least from my standpoint, is what are we going to do today? And what we do today is got to be based on some pretty good information, like modal learning and where we are with numbers and so on and so forth.
Yeah, that's a great question. We've never talked about it. I think there's a lot of things that make a great coach. And like you said, there's so many coaches that are different, unique, have different styles. I would say trust. And, it's hard because I live in a little different with my kids playing basketball at this high level. And it's a little different on the basketball side than it is on the volleyball side. But I think just like you do, Marv, and you've already shown it on this pod, is caring. Ray Rattel had his, Ray was Ray, but Ray cared about his players. John Price, I'm going up to see John this Saturday. He cared. He still cares about me. I'm 54 years old. I played with him when I was 18 years old. A lot of coaches today I see, and again, I'm generalizing when I say a lot, like you said, are just GMs. All they care about is the bottom line, the money, how we can do this. And I think that's, for me, the biggest foundation is character and treating people the right way.
Yeah.
Screaming at them, it doesn't matter. Making them go back to zero and practice for another half hour, that's all great. That's how it should be. But treating people poorly as a human being is a big problem, and that's a big problem in today's collegiate sports. We'll leave it as that. And I think that's been lost. That's why you got into coaching, I'm sure, like my dad did. He did because he cared, and he wanted to help people, and he wanted to see kids go from kids to young men to men. I mean, I'm sure you can't count of how many weddings you've been to, and seen kids and grandkids of all the young men you've coached. It's got to be just an unbelievable reward for you, and that's, I think, what's lost. And for me, that would be number one, is if you have that where they're caring. And I'll just kind of a broad stroke, but I think from there you can just branch out to become a great coach.
I call it, they know if you care or if you don't care. And the expression statement is like, you can fool a fool, you can con a con, but you can't kid a kid. They know.
Yep.
One time I had to have a tough conversation with a young man from Chicago, and his parents came out, and at some point in time in the conversation, which wasn't going my way or wasn't going really well, I said to this guy, I said, how do I feel about, and I went through every player on the team, and he said, well, Coley's your favorite. Dave is, and he nailed everything. I said, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Hey, you're going to be on the team, you're going to get your degree, but you're spot on. And here I was coaching thinking, I fooled these guys, and you can't fool it. But going back to your question, what makes a good coach or a great coach? You said caring, obviously, and And I think that truly great coaches inspire. And I always felt as part of my job was to make you have to be based in reality, but make the players feel bulletproof. And that's how I wanted them to feel.
Coach, can we go back a little ways to like your playing days? We didn't really touch on that with all your
says no.
accolades.
Yeah,
Sorry to pivot here. And what got you involved in volleyball? And tell us a little bit about your playing days, could you?
Yeah, I got into volleyball late. It was after I was in the Army. I was in Vietnam.
Oh,
Yeah,
Thank you for your
1968,
service.
and came back and started at Pierce, and
Pierce.
I got in.
Big Daddy.
Wasn't
Know that.
yeah, one of the best coaches and best human beings ever, and
Ken
Ken
Stanley.
Stanley.
mm-hmm.
He's having a rough go right now.
Right now.
Anyway, yeah. So and to get in the weeds here, we had a bunch of big guns at Pierce, and we played against Santa Monica City College that had Miles Paps, a great player,
Oh.
Long Beach,
Long Beach, yeah.
Carlos Fonseca, Butch May, a bunch of really
Oh,
good players, and they beat us in 5. And DeGroot and Cohen were at Santa Monica City, and they said, "Hey, where are you go to school?" and so on and so forth. And I was up in the air, but Rudy Sawar was coaching in Santa Barbara, and I said, "Hey, you know what? I'm on my way there." And Bert DeGroot had encouraged me at that time to go to Santa Barbara. Well, a few weeks later, he calls and he said, "Have you signed at Santa Barbara?" And I said, "No, but I will." And he said, "I'll meet you at the Malibu feed bin at the bottom of Topanga Canyon." And so he drove me up to Pepperdine, and there was this new campus, and he said, "We're taking the job, and would you come to Pep?" So it was great, and
awesome.
I was pretty lucky. They were both really good, and I learned, I think, more from Bert than I did from Harlan, because Harlan was, teaching people how to pass. I couldn't pass. Teach them how to set. I couldn't set.
Me neither.
Couldn't pass either.
And Bert was a little bit of the block D guy, so that was great. And that's how I got here. And then early on, I got exposed to, well, at first, when I first started coaching, I said, "Hey, do this." And they said, "Why?" And I said, "Because I said so," or because the Russians do it.
Yeah.
And then I became probably early 70s. I got to spend some time. I got to spend a lot of quality time with Carl McGowan. So then I knew a little bit,
Another great human being.
Yeah.
but it wasn't. And then everybody passed. I wasn't a good player.
You weren't a good player.
Or not?
I was not.
Really? What position did you play?
In the middle. That's when they just put big guys that could do anything.
Couldn't move laterally. You just stood there with your arms
No
up like
offense,
this.
Coley.
Yeah.
No offense.
Yeah. No offense taken. I'm not a big goon anymore. Like I'm 6'5" and I'm just a drop in the bucket. I'm a libero in
He's
today's
still a
game.
goon.
So
Doesn't matter if
I
he's
am.
big or not.
You're
he's
right.
still a goon.
Very, very much so. Go back to the Pierce days. Playing for Ken Stanley, and did you just fall in love with it at that point? Like you just started playing it? Did you? When you obviously he's one of the best, like you said, to do it. After you're playing with him at Pierce, and then you got to go to Pepperdine. Did you kind of like all of us just started playing the game and fell in love, or did it just kind of go? As years went by, you started to say, "Hey, this is something I want to continue to do."
Yeah. So then Ken was coaching basketball when I was at Pierce, and when I first went there, he was coaching basketball with Denny Crum. They went on to assist at UCLA and then Louisville.
Yep.
Louisville.
And so I think it was just probably more pickup. It wasn't on the beach. A lot of people think, Malibu, Southern Cal, you probably started on the beach and had this traditional whatever. But I went to Taft, and we never lost a Reseda in anything.
Of course you didn't. Of course, but that changed when I got there. It's great.
Awesome.
I love that that we're both from the Valley, though. So yeah, and they were
LA City guys.
That's awesome.
LA City, absolutely. Yeah, that's funny. They still don't. Reseda doesn't win in much anymore either, but they need to. Their football's doing okay, but that's funny.
Yeah. So so Ken started with the volleyball program after I left there, and but I was pretty lucky to, in Southern California, he was John Wooden, and then right over the hill at Cal Lutheran, the Cowboys used to practice, and Gary Stato knew Dennis Thurman, a defensive back. And, so I went over there, and I think I saw in both of those guys and in Ken Stanley a way to coach that was a little bit different than what I had seen, which is fear-based. And when you attack people, they kind of retreat. And I never wanted to be one of those guys. But at Landry, Wooden, and Stanley, I just thought, wow, here's a way. And I tried to be those guys. And pretty soon I had to be Marv Dunphy and not, Marv Wooden.
Somebody, yeah.
Marv, I remember seeing your dissertation. I think it was on John Wooden, right?
Yes.
And did you ever meet him?
Yeah, a couple times. And then for the dissertation, I sat with him for, probably 5 or 6 days, from 9 to 3, and asked him, 150 questions in sport. And it was just an awesome time for me, because sometimes
fascinating.
yeah, sometimes, and he had a little condo, a little apartment off of White Oak, Coley, and it was pretty unassuming. And if sometimes you get closer to people, you realize, it's the players, it's the money, it's this and that. And with him, every minute was big. He's better than advertised. And even he stopped coaching over 50 years ago, and a lot of woodenisms, and people still recite things from him.
Yeah. And his foundation of so many things, obviously the pyramid, but there's so many traits you can do. And one of his best quotes, I'm going to say, because I love it, it's my favorite quote, is he said, the greatest way as I just forgot the quote, it's amazing. Unbelievable. I'll get back to that. Thank goodness we can add it. Here it is. Here's the quote. Here's the quote. Okay. The greatest gift a man can give his children is to love their mother. And I've never forgot that one when I first learned it, before I even had kids. And that has nothing to do with basketball or sport, right? It's just John Wooden being John Wooden. And that quote to me has always been, I've always thought about that, like giving my kids the best thing I can is to love their mother. And I've tried to do that for 31 years. And I would have loved to just listen to him in a locker room. If I would have loved to play for someone like him. Yeah. Or for him, I should say. Yeah. It would have been amazing.
He knew the psychology of superior athletes, really, and sometimes, not everybody can coach the unique athletes. And I think he was able to, coach all different levels. And, it'd be interesting to hear the favorite quote. Mine was, "You have to earn the right to be proud and confident." But as I say that, with all of his quotes, here was so much that he reduced down to: be quick, but don't hurry. I don't want activity without achievement. And do you guys have any quotes, wooden quotes you can throw out?
The bench is your best friend. One of the first things I did when I became a coach, I read They Call Me Coach, just to get insight on how to be a coach. And obviously I was kind of kidding about the bench is your best friend, but he has so many quotes. It's unbelievable. He was definitely the man.
Yeah, my son, my wife played volleyball at UCLA, and my son was there for 3 years and got to play basketball at UCLA and went to the Final Four. And one of the foundations of it all, I mean, walking through their basketball, workout facility, is John Wooden's everywhere. The pyramids places, and Coach Cronin was very big on that, talked about it to these young kids. Everyone knows John Wooden, but it's really, like Sully said about you, like all these young kids that play volleyball, and again, you probably don't want to hear this being as humble as you are, but they should all know who Marv Dunphy is. I mean, you coach Karch in '88. Like we as volleyball players, we should know who you're talking about, who Fred Sturm is, who DeGroot is. All of these folks that have paved the way for this sport to be great, like yourself, us in the 90s, we talk about John Wooden. I think it's an important thing to never forget. And, it's just been pretty cool for me to grow up in Southern California and see all that. And especially in the volleyball world that we all four, you being 5, Marv, have been a part of, is just great people, great coaches, being around a great era of watching it just grow. It's been pretty special to see that.
Yeah. Crazy to think 15 years today, John Wooden passed away. That's crazy.
Wow.
Yep. Today.
Hey, there he is, right? You see him? That's Wooden right there.
Yeah, it is.
Who's that?
That's awesome.
John Wooden.
Wow.
No kidding.
Right
That's
there.
rad.
And that's
Wow, that's
me in
awesome.
his apartment. Yeah.
Wow.
Oh my
That's
gosh,
amazing.
that's crazy.
Marv, I got to ask. I think I know the answer, but I don't want to assume. Did you have an arch rival? Is it?
It was Northridge because when he coached him against me, he was 2-8. So he was 2-8 against Northridge when Coley
like
was
any
there.
particular
Coley,
coach
let's just stick that in
program?
there, coach. I wouldn't take that.
college, international level? Like, was there somebody you were like, I want to win this?
You know what? I think pretty much whoever would get in the way, but during my time, UCLA had won, and to this day, the UCLA men won a ton. And Al was these players never did anything to hurt their chances of winning, I thought that they were really good. So that was always special to play against his teams. And then internationally, the Soviet Union, the Russians were good, and actually Cuba was pretty darn good at during my time.
So we talk about impact you coaches have on players. More of an impact in college or more of an impact on international players that you've coached?
I would think, probably NCAA level. Yeah.
Yeah, different times in their life, right? That's why I'm kind of wondering.
Yeah, they're it's a little bit more like an all-star team at that level. And
Okay.
I have a question for. We've asked a few of these. I was fortunate enough to wear it as well. You're a little different. You were in Vietnam, so you fought for this country. And then how was it for you to actually put on the 3 letters to represent the United States as a coach? How was that feeling for you, especially after representing this country in a war?
Yeah. It's special. And so then I don't know if you guys remember this, but we were year round, right? So we'd play 90 matches a year, all over the States or the world, whatever. And to this day, the anthem, the standard for me is arms at your side and not in front, not behind, and not giggling, whatever. And heaven help the people if they butchered the anthem, because I would dehumanize them.
Yeah.
Yeah, so pretty special. And in fact, some of my best memories, like in Tokyo, it was pretty emotional, and trying to sing the anthem, and Karch is crying, and rightfully so, right?
Right.
Pretty special.
Yeah, watching kids giggle or talk during the national anthem is one of my biggest pet peeves by far. They just don't get it. Don't get it. Don't get what you did for us and everybody beyond that. And then, like Coley says, it's because I bring it up all the time. I wasn't in that situation to where USA. Tim got to do it. Coley got to do it, and it's something that you always want to do. But man, I just the emotions that you just talked about. I mean, you've been around that for a long time, Coach, and that's just something that some people don't ever get to experience. So that's pretty deep stuff for me. That's pretty deep stuff because I was never able to do it.
Yeah, I got to think it's an honor for most to try to get there, and you've been there so many times.
Well,
but what's great?
I'm old.
No, I'm not saying you're old at all. Not at all. You look younger. You look younger than Bear and Sully and I. No, but it's just you've gotten the opportunity to be in multiple Olympics as a coach, as an assistant coach, as a mentor, all the other ways, and of course, the man you are, you're never going to take that for granted, but some do. And we had Holly McPeak on here, and she talked about her experience getting up on the podium, getting the bronze medal. And she said she still, to this day, and this was 25 years ago, can't still even remember it. She was just in an emotional,
blackout.
heart fog of just an amazing thing. And I listen to the national anthem all the time before high school games, and it brings chills to me. I almost have a tear in my eye from wishing I could play and just being grateful that my son is playing in this environment and playing here in this country, doing what you and many others have done to sacrifice for us. But just to be able to do it and to see you continuing to do it for the USA, and obviously it's special.
Hey, Bear, didn't you coach against Coach Dunphy? How'd that go?
Yeah, I'm 0-1 against you, Coach. I don't know if you remember that, but I was coaching at Hope.
Yes.
And you allowed us to go up there to Pepperdine and play you guys. And you were great. You were really hospitable to us. And then after the game, I don't know if you remember this, you come up to me and you're like, hey, we have some uniforms missing. Do you know anything about that? I'm like, there's no way that's my team, Coach. We're Hope, right? We don't do that. And sure enough, I had to eat humble pie a couple days later and mail you back those uniforms. I apologize.
Was the game over in 20 or 30 minutes?
It was done in 3 real quick. Yeah.
I don't know if you know this, but some of your players said that you took them.
I couldn't fit in them, Coach.
No,
We're glad there's.
but you know what? I think that's sometimes when people make wrong choices, you get to know them better because you work on fixing them. I'm sure you had probably a good conversation with that young man, and
it was one of the players that I would think out of all my players wouldn't have done that, and we're still close to this day. And we had a heart-to-heart, and he apologized, and he felt horrible or whatever. And we had a heart-to-heart, and we actually bonded over that.
Yeah.
Learning, teaching moment. That's why you coach, right? We all, I don't even want to say all the things that I've done that I'm not proud of, but you learn from them, and that's a great teaching moment. If there was TikTok though, Coach, it might have been bad. They might have been dressing in the uniforms and doing videos and all those kind of things if it was in today's world.
So to start this off, Sully, you said some really nice things. You read off a lot of wins, whatever, but you said, I think it was something like 190 something and 31. I remember all 31 losses,
I bet.
Yeah,
that has come up a lot on these.
It's part of the
podcasts
deal,
with
and losing is part of it. Very seldom do you ever win them all, and
Right.
And I'd say I've lost, and the teams that I've been with have lost, and you don't have to lose to go through adversity. You can be close, but that's just part of the deal.
Yeah.
How important is losing, do you think, in the grand scheme of a season, a career, and embracing losing?
Well, I think you when you think of success and failure, I think you have to treat them the same. You have to learn from both and move on. And the biggest thing is to move on. Coach Wooden had this how long, philosophy. When something good happens, how long do you hang on to it? When something bad happens, how long do you hang on to it? And Coley, I'm thinking when you're at Reseda, there's some of the guys there that had good success, and they just said, "Oh man, this is it for my life," and then they refer back to that point in time. And so we won it all in '88, but my life didn't stop in '88. You just keep going. And
Yeah. And Coley, you hang on to losses probably a lot more than I know people hang on to losses. I think. Would you agree with that?
100%.
Yeah.
I still talk about my playing days. I could tell you almost every one of my kids' games from 3rd grade on when they lost, and but it's because I hate to lose, and winning is so great, right? But I think like Coach Dunphy just said, it's an important piece to never want to feel that way, understand what you need to do to get better and learn from it. That's what I've always tried to do. But yeah, losses still sting me to this day. I mean, I never ever forget May 8th, 93. That's the day we lost the national championship. And, it's all I ever wanted to do was to win a title, and getting there is remarkable for Northridge and for what we did. I'm very honored and happy to get there, but it still hurts. I mean, it still hurts after all this time. You're so close to your dreams and everything. It wouldn't change anything in the world. I'd still be talking to you, all of you guys here. I'm still the same person, but you definitely want to win that, if you get that chance.
And people that never really win and never really lose, they stay in the middle of the road. And I think we all like to be on the front edge of that.
Yeah. Euphoria.
I can't imagine any one of those 31 losses with that high performing team, right? The guys on that team went over very well at all.
Yeah. And, the interesting thing, not to go story time here, but we were playing.
Please do.
Yeah. So we were playing a lot of tours, right? And maybe we would play Korea five times in 4 different cities or something like that. And I would say to Karch, hey, I'm giving you the night off, and I'm going to see if a John Root or a Troy Tanner can carry the load. And but ING had sponsored this tour, and they'd paid a lot of money, and people that attended these matches had paid a lot of money, and I would hear it. Hey, I didn't pay $50. These guys
Not see
Karch play.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
and I paid to see whatever. And or if the match was getting out of hand and I had to right the ship, I would just look at Karch. We had this little look, and he would just start warming up. And all 4 years, he never said no. When it was time to go, he went. And pretty unique character in that way.
You talked earlier about unique players that you've coached through the years, like Karch and Stork or whoever. How do you coach somebody that? And you admitted that you weren't that a very good player. So how do you coach players that are unique and are much better players than you ever were?
Yeah. Pretty much what I like to do is when the kids are little, right, you have to show them and tell them because they don't know. And then there's guided discovery. And then at some point in time, there's mutual exploration, and there's respect all along the way. But the mutual exploration is huge. And I'm thinking of 2014, we're at the World Championships, and Karch had me working with the setters. And because the setting guy couldn't make the tour, right, the championship, and I couldn't train the setter, but I could work with them tactically on stuff. And the timeouts, seriously, would be something like this. What do we got? And so then by open-ended, I would hear where they were coming from. And I could go with it, or I could stun them with the truth, or whatever. And so I always like to do that, I inherited 3 Buck, and, Buck saw the game really well. Timmons played well, saw it well, and obviously Karch. And so I wasn't going to tell them how to do things. And,
Sure.
it was a mutual thing. And I tried to stay out of their way.
In all the years you've coached, from back when you were just starting out at Pierce, everyone has the LeBron and Kobe and MJ debate. Is Karch the best to ever do it? Is he the GOAT in volleyball? And is anyone even close?
Yeah, he's the best. He's the best that I ever worked with. And, and let me throw another name out to you, Eric Sato.
Yeah, I love Eric.
Oh, yeah.
He was, he didn't play all around because we had, some bigger pieces. And, but boy,
Size for size.
he was, pound for pound.
Fun to watch.
Good as any volleyball athlete that I've seen.
I think he would. I mean, obviously, there's no think. If the game today with the libero was back with him, he obviously would have never come off the court. And like you said, his impact, it already was amazing, right? Esat's was just amazing. But had he been the libero, he'd have probably played in 4 or 5 Olympics, and he'd have changed the dynamics of the way, just being in there the entire time. It would have been really fun. And now that they can serve, I think it's on the one libero with the way he did. And I would have loved to see that. But that's an interesting, and I could see it for sure, of bringing, Sato in with Karch. And all of us that watch, if you talk to anyone that is not even a casual fan that doesn't know much about volleyball, they know the name Karch Karai. And, he's synonymous with volleyball, and he should be, right? He should be. He's, as you just said, he's, in your opinion, he's the best ever. I would think most would say that. I think it's always a fun to argue, and hopefully someone in the next 5 to 10 years or 15 years can reach that kind of capacity of what Karch did, and we can have that argument, right, of who's the best, or of generations or whatever, because that just would make our country, the volleyball in our country, just obviously that much better to have someone that's trying to be better long term than Karch of all time.
Hey, Marv, were you able to see any college games this year and see that setter from Long Beach, Moni Nikolov? Were you able to see him?
I saw him. They played here at Pep, Long Beach 1-5, and he was knocking people down with his serve. And then in NC2As, he was just a special server, and a little bit reminded me a little bit of Clay Stanley. And you're talking about great players. When when I was with USA team and when Clay would serve, I'd always stand next to the pole so I could another day, because I think half of his aces were just blowing people up. They couldn't get out of the way, kicking up this Scud missile, and I don't think anybody hit a ball kind of like him. Most, including Cole. Yours had a little bit of topspin. Sometimes his would just.
Yeah.
So how about internationally? In all the years you've coached, we say Karch is the best. If you can give me maybe top 3 or 1 or 2 of the best international players you've ever coached against that possibly are on that Mount Rushmore of volleyball as a whole. On the men, we're talking on the men's side.
Alexander Savin from Soviet Union, and I got to see, not coach against Wojtowicz from Poland, and Stan Gushiniak also from Poland. Great players.
Coach, you got a top 6 roster for Pepperdine starting 6, including starting 6 plus the libero from all your years of coaching.
Well, that's a tough question.
Yeah.
Putting you on the spot, Coach.
Do you have any children?
Oh, I have 4. Yep.
Which is your favorite child?
Who listens the most? Let me
Fair
listen. I'm
counter.
just kidding.
What day is it? I would think it's.
Yeah, well, you've had absolute studs come through, and if you can put a squad of 18 together, but you had to put that 6 out there. I mean, you had Buck, you had Sorensen. Yeah, I mean, we can go. The list goes on and
Tanner,
on and on.
Chip, Dwayne, Dane. I think Dane was a really, really good college player. I wouldn't say he was an elite college player, but obviously he's one of the elite beach players and one of the most elite
Thank you very much.
competitors that I've ever been around as well. So, but that I'm kind of taking you out so you don't have to put Dane in there because he did win a gold medal on the beach side.
On the beach, but
Sorry, Dane, I love you, bud.
No, but any true thoughts on that? I mean, I get your perspective about my kids and not having your favorites, but man, there's got to be a couple that you're like, yeah, you know what? They would be at least in the conversation of my starting 6.
Yeah, thinking outside, Sean Rooney is pretty special. Staverlik certainly. Setting wise, you had Winder, McCaw, Stort, Rod Wild. Rod, probably, if I were to say, hey, locate a ball somewhere, Rod could probably do that as well as anybody. Middles would be obviously Craig Buck, Brad Keenan.
Oh,
That's a Fountain Valley boy. That's where I went to high school.
Yep.
Yeah.
And a Paul Mitchell boy. He played with us in Paul Mitchell. So
And Paul Carroll had unbelievable range. And what's interesting with Paul is everybody thought of him as a great blocker, server, hitter, but defensively, you couldn't tip a ball on him because he was so long. He could pancake anything, and And what's kind of neat about that crew, Sully, is that Keenan saw the game pretty well, and so did Buck, and they're middles. And sometimes, we look at them as maybe 1 or 2 dimensional, but those guys are good all around players.
Interesting. How's Buck doing, by the way? I know he had a terrible accident.
He's staying the course and fighting the good fight. And I chat with him now and then, and I always enjoy our conversations. He's a pretty special character.
Yeah, it's good to hear.
Marv, with this being a pretty heavy Long Beach crew here, just curious, what are your memories of Staverlik transferring? I mean, he seemed to be a Long Beach guy through and through. Long Beach City College to Long Beach, then going to Pepperdine, and then the rest is history kind of thing. But is it the original transfer portal scandal, or what was your view of it?
Yeah, so then I didn't know too much of his background, right? And it was kind of one-sided where he was pursuing us. And he didn't, if I remember correctly, he didn't get released. So he was here for 2 years without a scholarship, and
Oh,
and he had to redshirt his first year, and yeah, and but if you ever saw his platform, I can't really show it here, but his right would be in
Yeah.
the middle of his hand. And when he first got here, I said, "Hey, use the conventional way to do it." And 2 weeks later, I pulled the other guys in. And I said, "Put your thumb in the front."
go back to where you were.
Don't change a thing.
Yeah, and I think the elite ones in any sport, there's a difference between competitiveness and toughness, and we could be competitive at ping pong or cards or trivia or bingo, whatever. But when when you're tough, you overcome things, and Bob was tough
Mm.
in a good
Now-
way. Yeah, not taking the baseball bat and beating up on the Gatorade cooler, but he was just tough when it was time to be tough.
That's another thing I feel is lost in a lot of these younger generations is just being tough, right? And it's not just about, like you said, competitive. It's about getting up. It's about finding ways to do things. And obviously Bob Stavert looks, one of the better players to ever do it in this country. And you personified that by who he was. And I hope that we did this podcast for a few reasons, Marv. One is to tell stories. So if you want to tell stories, we'd love to hear any you wanted to evangelize volleyball. It's done so much for all of us, just like it has for you. I'm so grateful. My whole life is because of it. But it's also to try to maybe help the younger generation. There's 12-year-old kids listening to this that play club volleyball, and there's parents that are listening to this. And, I think we need to go back some generations in a few different ways. Maybe not the athleticism and the training and stuff, but the toughness, the certain character issues, the dealing with adversity, failing and it being okay, not walking into your teacher's office and tell the teacher you need to give your kid a B because it was hard.
Yeah,
like, no,
accountability.
your kid got a C and they deserve a C, but for some reason in today's world, they end up getting a B. And I think all of these things need to be addressed. So I really love hearing these from you. And I again, more nuggets that you can give us, because my hope is that people do listen to this and we help mold the next generation of athletes of conforming from the best of our generation to what's amazing in this generation, right? This generation is so good and it's so fast and it's so much involvement of training and believing and watching. And, we talked about girls and women's volleyball. When we were playing in the 90s, you barely saw it. It's on NBC on a Saturday during college football season. There's pro leagues and there's so much for young women to watch, which is great. But again, it goes back to what I just said about that extra toughness and certain things that I hope more younger generation volleyball players can start to understand that and pursue toughness and heart, like you asked, and learn to grow those things into their game and not pout and whine and complain and have their parents do everything for them and have no accountability.
Yeah, all these highly structured programs, I think they have a place, but one of the things that's kind of lost is the skill of winning. And so when you think of inner city basketball, you had to win to stay on. When you play
Right.
doubles and triples, you had to win to stay on.
Yep.
And also you played against bigger, stronger, better players quite often. And so you learned a little bit earlier what goes and what doesn't go. And I think we do them a disservice, these young players, where they play same height, same weight, same age, same level of competency, and then they go off and play, eat at Chuck E. Cheese. Do they still have Chuck E. Cheese? I don't know.
They do. They still do. I used to take my kid there all the time. But you're right, Marv. We talk about this all the time, and this might be a good segue to understand, since you've been around the game, the international. The international players are taking over all sports. You look at volleyball, like Northridge has 9 international players on its roster for men's volleyball. You look at, basketball and the NBA, like the best players, except this past year when SGA won it, the last 4 or 5 years, it's been a foreign player winning the MVP of the league. They train differently. They work differently. I agree with you. We play way too much here. There's 4 or 5 games in a weekend. So if you lose on Saturday, it doesn't matter because you're playing 4 more on Sunday. And you're like, oh, like you said, go to Chuck E. Cheese. How do we change that? And what do you see the biggest difference between the way the European model is of training kids from 12 on to what we're doing here?
Well, I think maybe I'm not answering your question directly, but I think just the better players see the game better. It used to irritate me to no end that Rod Wild would come in with, sand and dirt up to his knees, right? And then he would play on the beach in the morning, practice, and then he'd be sneaking in with the intramurals at night, and it used to bug me to no end. But you're talking about there's volleyball in his blood, and same thing with John Mayer. And so I think the better players see the game better. And I remember at one point in time, I think we used the Palisades Volleyball Club that I was part of, and it got to be a little bit of a divisive, because some of the parents said, hey, the blue chip parents said, we want them to get scholarships and go on. And then another segment said, hey, everybody plays. And so then we ended up dividing up. Hey, blue chippers, you stay at Palisades. The rest of you go to Venice. And, and we made peace with the parents. But the reason I mention that is that, so the practices were on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I think. And I suggested that Wednesday we let them play, right? And I was with the blue chip parents, and they thought I was a communist. No, we need to train the heck out of them. There needs to be this highly formalized whatever. And I looked at it as an opportunity for them to play. And I think you'd agree, the better players play 8 days a week.
But agreed. But the difference is they're playing, like you said, Rod, and we had Casey Patterson on. He used to talk about just going out to the courts. Yeah. The difference with Rod going to the intramurals and down to the beach, he's doing it on his own, and he's doing it unstructured.
Yep.
Again, this is my opinion, and I've talked to many others, and they kind of feel it is the structure of it these days here in the States is so much with youth sports and the tournaments and the money and all of that stuff. Yeah, they're playing, but they're not playing with the purpose that Rod did. Rod went to the beach to get better and win.
Yeah.
He didn't go because his parents were paying $1,000 a dues, and you're playing on the club team, so you're playing 8 games this weekend. I think there's a big difference in that, and that's where I think we need to get back to, hopefully, like, not just training 24/7, but less games and making games mean more. Like you said, it's I don't want to call it a skill, but competitiveness and winning is why you play sports. It's why we'd play ping pong or Vignette. You beat me, I'd be bummed, but and it's not going to ruin my life. But we're not going to play ping pong just to hit it. We're going to play a game. You're going to try to beat me, and I'm going to try to beat you. And I think that's lost again in today's generation because we play so much. I wish we would go back and not like at the park when I grew up in the Valley. You'd play one game on the weekend. And that game meant the world to you. It meant the world to you when you got to play that one game after practicing. And now again, there's so many. So I was just curious what you thought, because I know the Europeans don't do that as much at a younger age. Structured playing, I should say, not playing, but too much structure.
And when you mentioned parents, Trent Dilford came here. His daughter transferred, and he was hanging out in the gym, and I introduced myself, and I said, hey, I coach men's volleyball. And he said, oh, yeah, I was at the match last night. First men's volleyball match I'd seen. It's a reverse sweep, with us and Irvine. And we started chatting, and I said, what are you doing? And he said, well, I'm just waiting for my daughter to watch this basketball game. And I said, hey, come on up in my office. And so we were up here for about, I don't know, hour and a half, whatever. And his daughter came up, and he goes, no, he'd come back later, because, we're chit-chatting about coaching. And I really love some of his takes. And one of the things, he has a pickup truck and 3 daughters. And he put two hats on the dashboard, a parent hat and a coach hat. Mm-hmm. And after a practice or a game, the child got to pick what they wanted. And it was the oldest one only took the parent hat, right? Middle one, 50-50. The young one only took the coach hat. Give it to me. And, I think, I think that would be wise for some parents to hey, let them choose what hat they want.
I wish I would have heard this 20 years ago. Yeah. I'm way different with my second, but I was a little bit more gnarly with my first. What a great way to do that Trent did that for his children. I love that. So if you listen to that, make sure you're doing that, parents. Let your kids choose what they want to hear on your drive home. Yeah. Let them choose.
That's a good idea. Hey, just a little spin on Pepperdine. So Servertlik was the one that inspired me to continue to go to Long Beach State, right? And then my first assistant at Long Beach was Robert McNutt. Crazy man himself. Look at him smiling. Yeah, Coach like, yeah, right, McNutt. crazy, man. But I actually went into Coach Ray Rattel's office, and he's like, "So, like, what do you want to get out of Long Beach State? Like, what do you want to be?" And I'm like, "I had to emulate Stabertlich, right? I want to be the player of the year." And he just kind of tilts his head, and I said, "I want to win the NCAA championship." And he laughed. Ray Rattel laughed. And in front of my dad looks at him like, what are you doing? But I got to tell you, Coach, what you guys did at Pepperdine during my time, that was late 80s, I guess mid to late 80s, was unbelievable. And to have it on national TV, that was a big deal for me. So I'm just giving you kudos. And Rod Wild called me to, talk about coming to Pep and stuff. But I just think that Pepperdine was a real stable along with UCLA back in the day. And just to let you know, that catapulted me into not choosing football, but to go into volleyball. So just I let you know, that was awesome for me.
Inspiring, like you said it, Coach. That's a big part of coaching is inspiring young kids. Nothing more that I get a kick out of is traveling somewhere and someone say, "Are you Coach Kyman's son?" My dad, and they tell me what my dad meant to them or what my dad did for them growing up, and as a coach. And for me, it's pretty awesome. And like I said, I'm sure there's multitude of young men and their kids that could say the same about you.
Yeah, for sure.
I was talking to Sue Enquist. The topic was Coach Wooden and how he would say he never wanted to corner a lion, and so I gave her a few stories why. And Sue Enquist, do we know who she is?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Multiple national championships as a player and a coach, and just a fabulous person. And she was telling me this story. You guys will love it. I think it was UCLA Cal in the softball regionals, and Cal had maybe one great player. And so all they had to do was, pitch around her or get through her, and they win. And then, like softball was 1-0, 2-1 was a big score, right?
Yeah.
And so I think it was the first inning, and so the UCLA pitcher pitches the ball, and this gal for Cal hits it to the moon. Sue walks out and goes to the mound like, "Hey, what's up, whatever." I don't know if she said anything, but the player said, "I don't know how my pitch hit her bat. Go back to the dugout." I love that. It's kind of like the game within the game. And, I love that. And
That's awesome.
yeah.
Hey,
Can I
guys.
ask- Yeah.
Go, no, Dave. Well, I was just going to say we're at an hour and 10 minutes on this. We can still continue. I would love to have Coach back because I think there's a lot more stories within his stories. And I think we just kind of relinquish just having Coach telling the stories. I think that'd be awesome for us. So up to you guys. But if we want to shut this down, what do you guys think before I give us a little send off?
Look, I wanted him to tell the Jeff Stork story.
Let's hear it.
Because you've brought Stork up a lot over the several episodes.
One more story.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Marv, the one where I told you, so I was joking with him. He would host barbecues at his house, and there would be national team players, and the Satos were always there and stuff. And I remember playing my heart out in front of, like, Jeff Stork just happens to be playing, and I dove for a ball. Stork picks me up and goes, "Kid, you're trying too hard." And so Marv, I'm serious. And then Marv, you were telling this great story about asking him, when did you become a good setter, or when did you feel that? And it was like 5 years after the 88 gold winning match.
No
And
kidding.
I thought that was a great story to share. So Marv, can you share it?
I think what happens is that maybe too often is that we get pigeonholed and they're saying, hey, the setter has to be the leader, the setter has to be the captain, the setter has to be this, and so on and so forth. And that hasn't been the case, really for me. And it's whoever is the natural leader, right? And they do it in different ways. Some guys are rah-rah, and some, like Karch, are leading by example. But I was talking to Jeff. I said, when did you feel like you were really confident in your own skin as a setter and good at what you did? And he thought for a while, and he goes, I think after we won it in Italy, which is 4 or 5 years after he had won a gold medal. And
That's crazy.
That's incredible.
That is unbelievable.
But that shows you the being one of the elite athletes, how their heads work, right? Like, they're never satisfied. I mean, he won a gold medal and he didn't even think he was where he should be, right?
Yeah.
And he was one of the better setters in the world at that point. I mean, you had all those guys around him, and then to not, of course he believed in himself, but not to realize like, I still have so much more to go. And then to reflect on that years later to say like, yeah, my best was here is pretty remarkable. To hear that.
Yeah, and then just with Stork, another story is that it was kind of like it was a late recruit. I got him in the summer, and I saw him hit, and he had big paws and a good arm, and so when he comes here, he wanted to hit, and so we go back and forth, and I said, hey, 6'3" hitters are a dime a dozen. You'll have a better career. You touch the ball pretty well as a setter, and so we had a two-setter offense, I think his first year. And then he went on to have some good success. And because I told him, as you go through life, you want to have options. And he's going to have more options as a setter. And we kind of struggled a little bit. And so we won a gold medal in 88, bronze medal in 92. And in 96, he was on the team, but they didn't medal. And but leading up to 96, he came to me and he said, hey, Marv, can we meet? I could tell by the tone, the serious conversation. And so Italy was pulling him to go to Italy early, and the U.S. was offering, some money, but he was up in the air about, what he was going to choose. And I just kind of smiled, and he goes, what are you smiling at? I said, I'm going back a few years, now you have these options.
Options, yeah.
You get over thousands of dollars or the USA team and so on and so forth. And he goes, yeah, I know. And, you want to have options in life. And we kind of smile about that to this day.
I bet. That's awesome.
That's great. That's great.
Really cool.
Great story.
Okay, guys. Like I said, we can have Coach Dunphy back anytime. So again, Coach Marv Dunphy, such a wonderful guest, great career. We really loved you having on, and we'd love to have you back on Set the Pipe.
Thanks
for
so
coming
much,
on.
Coach.
Yeah, Coach, thanks so much
Marv.
for being here and just sharing all your insight on everything that you've done. And, you mean a lot to me too, just for all these years. So just so great to have you on this, and thanks for joining.
Yeah, honored to be with you. And next time we dig a little bit more into your lives.
Thank you.
Would love
We can do
to.
that. Sure.
And I got to get up to Malibu soon because I think I can take you in ping pong. Just saying.
Hey, Marv, just bring your 4 rings with you. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
So maybe the last thing here, Cole, you were working my camp, and
Yes, I was.
we had a staff match, and Romaine was also working the camp, and you were playing on the side with, I think the guy who was from Australia, George Petru, whatever, and he boosted his left. He's going to block Romaine on the D or the front row. I don't know. You couldn't tell a difference from him because he's coming
Right.
from such a high play.
Yeah.
And Romaine hits the ball, and this guy is yelling, no. And you were in the middle, and you just, you might want to zip it because he cleared you. And I just love the way you said that. It was only it was for his ear, but you just calmed down a little bit.
As you said, reality matters sometimes when you're talking to people.
You might want to
They-
zip it.
they
He just
need-
hit over you.
Yeah,
All right.
so funny.
That's awesome.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marv.
Yeah, so good.
Sincerely.
Yeah, you guys take care.
Okay.
You